again, I think it's good morning, good afternoon here to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, again, it's my honor to moderate this session. I hope you have enjoyed the program so far. Well, as I didn't give really a summary, just put it maybe in a few words what you've heard so far. The pandemic has created rather more opportunities and a more intense awareness that we need to move faster in adopting Industry 4.0 solutions, new solutions, bring innovation more on the top agenda. Moving up the value chain was one of the overarching, I think, aspects as well. So we have also heard increased deployment of new solutions like in hospitals and also in the medical space, but also in other areas like the EV. Although the automotive sector has been hit hard, EV segment seems to fare quite well. But we have also heard that in many segments, the semicon crisis is definitely a very limiting element. And that's, I think, a good transition into this panel, because ultimately this is about electrical and electronics. We see more connectivity, more smartness, more autonomous system, and they only work based on electronics and electrical systems. So I think this is very much in the core here of all digitalization efforts. And in this regard, I'm very happy to moderate this session. The flow will be very similar to the flow of the plenary session. So first, but of course, focusing now on this specific sector. So we will first elaborate on the question of how this specific sector fared in the pandemic in general, but particularly in Thailand, how to move forward, what needs to be done to really climb up that value chain, and how much, what are the challenges here? Obviously, we heard funding, investments is always a topic, but also human capital, and how much Industry 4.0 here is on the radar and considered and taken into account. Jane, now a fundamental question: how many minutes do we have left? Because I don't see the counter here, the clock. I think I get this in the chat. Anyway, let's start. I have the ladies first in this case, but it has also another aspect. Ms. Varayana, you are in the sales, right? And you
Yes.
feel impact in the market immediately, also probably most imminently than compared to others. So how do you see the impact of the pandemic in the last, let's say, 12 months?
Well, we, of course, the pandemic has given us the unimaginable challenges. So I can give you some example of what we have in the area of the sales and marketings that have been affected. So the demand in the market has been reduced, which leads to reduced orders. So as the entrepreneurs, we are facing the decrease in the revenue flows. That's one of the major challenges that we are facing. And another one is a shortage of inputs, including the raw materials. So this could delay us the delivery lead time to our customers. Those are the challenges from the pandemic.
Right.
Yeah.
What is your, I mean, you can, of course, not really, if the demand drops, but has anything changed in your sales strategy because of that pandemic, or you just do business as usual with certain restrictions?
Well, in our industry, the orders of the projects are discussed like years ago. So we still have orders to run, but in order to keep it smoothly, it's quite difficult. You know, we have affected in the manpower, we have to change our plan daily, and that caused a lot of troubles in the factory.
I see, yeah. Maybe to hear also from industry, Mr. Rajan, what's your take on the impact of the pandemic? Also as a business leader, how do you look into this?
Thanks, Dr. Hauser. So I think everybody knows that the semiconductor industry has actually performed very well because of this pandemic. A lot of people are working from home, so the demand for computers, cameras have significantly increased, and I think that's what is driving some of the semiconductor shortage that you are seeing. But there have been some negatives to the industry, primarily in the supply chain business. I think companies that have been dual sourced or triple sourced for their supply have actually fared better than other companies who are just single source. So, for example, if all your supply chain was based in China, initially, when the virus came out, China was completely shut down and you were not getting your product. But if you had a diversified supply chain, like, for example, Denslight was fortunate to be in the second category, where we had a diversified supply chain in Korea as well as in India, we were able to divert some of our requirements to our suppliers in other parts of the world while China recovered. So I think definitely there was a supply chain, I would say, delay, but I think China recovered quite fast. So definitely, I would say there was some revenue loss in the early part of 2020, but I think the recovery came in the second half of 2020. The other challenge I think even semiconductor businesses have had is really the acquisition of new customers. A lot of the demand you're seeing is that a lot of customers are just demanding more of the same product. Qualification of a new product takes a long time and it requires a lot of face time, a lot of technical discussions. And having a technical discussion over a Zoom is very different than doing it face to face. So I think that has slowed down some of the new product qualification with whose impact you are going to see in the next 2 to 3 years, not today. So that's where the delay is going to come in the semiconductor business.
Right.
I would say are the two main challenges.
Yeah. This we see also in other sectors, right? New business is typically very difficult in this situation. I mean, teams, we can have a good conversations with existing relationships, but new business, new technologies is very complex through digital means. Yeah, thank you very much for your insights. Maybe having a look coming from the perspective of a university, maybe. Mr. Dr. Nara, maybe can you share how that affected basically your working area, the area you were working in?
Yes. Okay. For my side is for maybe past 2 or 3 years before, I have an opportunity to get involved in the training for LASI, Lean Automation System Integrator, and I have joined the class for Smart IoT for Master Trainer that provided by the Department of Industrial Promotion Agency of Thailand, that they try to help the SME and manufacturer to move up to the digitalized transformation and industrial 4.0. But before COVID pandemic, we work with the SME world. But when the COVID come, we maybe stop to or lost in the connect to the SME to join our training project or to train the capital, human capital in the part of the SME to rise them up to be the organized for digitalized. So I think this now is a situation in Thailand that we pause the project of concern that about the for industry. Yes.
Is that is the reason that generally you can't meet in person, you can't attend lessons in person, or is it basically that also many SMEs or companies generally now focus on, let's say, very operational topics? You know, they're dealing with very short-term issues, challenges, rather than thinking in more strategic terms?
I think they're not exactly stop or pause, but just a little bit movement on the training via the online, via the Zoom, but we difficulty to visit the plant for the help them to move up, such as the consult them, such as the train via the hardware, install the hardware, help them to initialize their to Industrial 4.0. That may be slowly than our plan.
Mr. Nivat, you as Assistant President of the Electric and Electronics Institute Thailand, you may have a very good overview about that sector, how that fared in the last, say, 12 to 18 months. Can you share some?
I have some kind of presentation. For the Thai electrical and electronics industry outlook, for our database of EI, we categorize into 3 groups. That we have the electrical part and electronics and home appliance. And electronics, you may know that the main maker is a hard disk drive. It's the 2 major, like a Seagate and Western Digital. And next category is IC packaging in Thailand. And the next big one is the EMS or electronic manufacturing service. This is the whole, maybe we call the MNC, from the foreign investment. And the next category is the home appliance. Home appliance, we have many long time ago investment from the Japanese company, like Toshiba, Mitsubishi, Panasonic, and Hitachi. And this is a very slow movement in the technology. It's different kind from the electronics. And the last category is the, we call the electrical parts. Is comprised of a power transformer, MDB, or power inverter. This is the of the Thai maker, but we lack of some kind of the like a PLC maker or like the power products here. However, if you see this chart, you may mention that the main account for the workforce is the big enterprise, which is in the electronics industry, like a hard disk drive or PCBA or EMS. But the small and medium size of a company is the major in the quantities, around 60%. And the total company in this industry in Thailand is around 2,500 enterprises. However, we account for the workforce is around nearly 700,000 workforce. Okay. I review because if asked for the pandemic, now in 2021, in the big company, I think some company, the workforce has got the COVID-19, so they have to stop or they have to move the workforce. And if for the multinational company, we think that they have the continual parent for them. But for the SME, they cannot. And if they did not implement for the automation or Industry 4.0 before, they get some trouble. Okay, this now I think okay.
So that's one thing. But maybe can you share a bit more? How do you get prepared for, or what do you have changed? What you are going to change to make sure that your company is faring more in a resilient manner?
Yeah, so there are several changes that we have adopted Clearly, one of the most visible changes is how you do business, right? It's a lot about, video conferencing that we never used to do before. I mean, in an event like this, would almost be impossible even 4 or 5 years back. But today it's possible. People are used to attending online. So definitely we've had to change the way we communicate. You're not privy to a person's body language like you are if you meet them face to face. So how you communicate and how you interpret what a person is saying, particularly if it's in a different language, I think is a big change that our people down to the engineer level have had to overcome. We have adopted some training measures to talk about communication using video techniques, which frankly we didn't have to do before the pandemic. The second change that we have made is, as I mentioned earlier, is diversify our supply chain. I think that has increased the number of people that we need to manage our suppliers, because suddenly instead of having 2 suppliers, we have 4 for the same product. So we've had to make adjustments to our workforce. In fact, 2020 was one of our largest hiring periods forever. So I think that was also very interesting. I did not anticipate that. And definitely the type of products we are making has also changed. For example, now we are providing, say, firmware with our product, which frankly, we didn't have to do that before, only because we can now remote control the firmware. I don't, because I don't have the ability to send my engineers to the customer's work site. I now need to provide some sort of software to do remote control. When I buy an equipment, a lot of our tool manufacturers who are selling us the equipment are not able to come to Singapore. So how do I install a new tool? It's all done through remote control and then remote qualification, which is a huge change in how we do business. So I would say that these are the 3 main changes that we've had to adopt. And I think we will continue to do this regardless of the pandemic.
Interesting. I mean, that people are more open to have online calls and Teams calls and Zoom calls. I think that's definitely one thing. The other thing is, how much acceptance is there to really get remote access to operations, to the shop floor, basically, which is also a big discussion with cybersecurity and those kind of concerns?
So, I mean, you can do it through VPN connections. You can have, remote access. You can create, like a secure tunnel. So I think those kind of items, frankly, to me are well-established modes of communication. But the real key is, how do you actually qualify an installation of a tool remotely? I think that is a huge challenge, and then my engineers complained a lot when I asked them to do that. But once they did it, they kind of got used to it. The second time it was better. The third time, it was almost as good as the supply, the vendor, being physically there. So I think it's just a matter of practice and training.
Yeah, there's a lot of learning and quite a learning curve. Ms. Varanya, and maybe also from your side, what are you changing basically based on the impact of this pandemic moving forward, and also particularly looking into new technologies?
Yes, there are 3 practices that we have been doing since the pandemic. First, we created a COVID-19 cost and balance sheet. So doing this, we can find out the total cost that we have. Then we will cut off any cost that is unnecessary. Then, we can keep the financial running in the factory still. Then second, go digital and have more technology into the manufacturing sector. Then this will keep our factory running we will need less manpower, and we can use robotics and technology to cope with, the losing of the manpower. Then the last one is we created a safe environment for the customers and the employees to feel safe to come to our factory and to work as normal. And we have practiced some work from home, but as in the factory, we cannot give the machines to all the operators to bring home and working from home, right? So in those labor level, they still have to come to the factory. So we keep them safe as much as we could. That's all we did.
I see. Also really using the digital technologies to reduce the labor intensity somehow to keep the companies or the factories running. And those who go into the shop floor, protect them as much as possible and help them with digital tools online if possible. From maybe again same question to you, Dr. Nara, from your perspective. I mean, what is your lessons learned, and what are you changing or have changed basically to cope better in this pandemic?
Yes, for my experience, especially on this year, that I have opportunity to consult with maybe 4 or 5 companies that let them to do the digital transform. Just initiate some such as they try to connect the local information, offline information to the online by the Google Sheets, by the send some information from the sensor that connect to the PLC and then move them up to the cloud system that that we can use, analyze the data, summarize, and then use it for decision. That the manufacturer try to move to the next step, but they also have the obstacle for the SME in Thailand. For the large company is no problem. We can help them. We can to Zoom, we can to remote, we can to let the engineer to make installation the sensor that we send them to send the sensor to them. But for the SME, they don't have any knowledge. They don't require to make it by themselves because they're afraid that they make the sensor burn. Because of low education for operator for SME in Thailand, that is a main obstacle for moving up to digital transform. Yes.
Interesting, this challenge on the human capital side, which I would like to address anyway. But before that, maybe Mr. Nivat, overview also of the sector itself. What do you think? What are the lessons learned? How to move better forward in a more resilient manner?
Yeah, I quite agree with Dr. Nara that the SME Thai has many gap and the lack of knowledge, and they need help from the government side and university side. And however, the main point here is the lack of the semiconductor chip, and for the big corporate, they have to move to manufacture for the lower modern model, like a refrigerator. I heard that they have to move back like the conventional model, no inverter, no intelligent, no something. So it's a suffer for them because, but I think it's less than the automotive sector. And for the SME, they have to starting to educate their staff because it's a better time if there is like a no such a critical job or something. They have to separate more people, so they have to learn. And as I mentioned from Mr. Sakda of Thara, now Ministry of Industry at the TGI and EI. TGI come from a Thai German Institute, and EI we have make some virtual network we call the Center of Robotic Excellence, CORE, and we call CORE. CORE is the joint of some university and association. we set the training program for them free of charge, and some kind we let them take the like a problem in the production line into the class and discuss, and the instructor help them to solve. And after finish the training, instructor go to see the real life in their factory and set up the project. Yes, set up the project like implementation, but some budget from the Ministry of Industry to support them, and they can implement more. Maybe have no labor cost or consulting cost, just only the hardware cost. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, also we already in the human capital discussion, and also heard the funding aspect is also something important. And maybe now really with this upskilling and training workforce to, I mean, ultimately support the adoption of new technologies, but also running it. And the purpose is, of course, to become more productive and so on. But a key aspect is now really this resilience, obviously, right? Maybe Mr. Rajan, can you share a bit? How do you train your staff, make them ready, basically, for this this new era, which is already ongoing, but more and more it's becoming serious? Yeah.
Yeah. Frankly, it has been a challenge, and but I think we have learned. For example, all our training now is done virtually. We have leadership training. We have technical training, which we've had to just, go online. And one of the things that I personally do myself is a company introduction for all our new employees. And so I, got that video recorded, and now, people, we've had some employees join us, virtually. They haven't been able to come into Singapore, or they, had to serve quarantine in Singapore before they joined us physically. So we got through the orientation process all virtually. So I think the people have kind of gotten used to it. However, I do believe that there is no substitute for, a face-to-face training. I think the online training it's okay, but you don't get a sense of, the absorption level of the people who are taking the training. And I think that's been a challenge for us. And then, we find that the effectiveness may not be there. Now, not all training can be done online. And I think, being a manufacturing company, fortunately, we've had, almost 85% of our employees at work. And, so it's not been such a big, trouble for us. But I think just in general, simple things, you won't believe it, like, how to use Zoom or Google Meet, people, don't know how to do that. And one has to keep teaching them again and again. Sometimes the audio doesn't work, sometimes the video doesn't work. So stuff like that, I think, requires a lot of practice and training. And I think the people are getting used to that. And I think now that they know, I think this is going to become permanent, because we are going to go into a hybrid work arrangement, frankly, permanently. And then if people want to work from home, I will do it on an exception basis. And I think most companies are going to be like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I also remember discussions about, can you do this from home? And there was always restrictions and problems. But if you have to do it, you just do it, and it's not a problem. It works as well, right? We just have to live with it. Miss Varanya, maybe can you share how do you, let's say, help your people, your workforce, to better cope with these kind of restrictions and limitations?
In the area of training and upping their skills, or I can share with you from the sales and marketing basis. What we are trying to do is going more digital and more, networking through all these virtual events. So we have to learn a lot of the new technologies and new websites and new applications that can help us reach to new customers. So we have been using a lot of those tools, such as LinkedIn is very helpful for us to have new customers. So this new learning curve has been taught to the sales team and the marketing team. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. We have not too much time, but one very important topic which we already touched in the previous panel a little bit, and I would ask you to give me a short answer. I mean, we talk about local value creation, moving up the value chain, and now with this higher acceptance of, let's say, adopting new technologies, from your perspective, what needs to be done to really move up this value chain? Maybe just in a few comments would be great to hear your view. Maybe starting with Mr. Nivat, who has a good overview of the sector generally. So how can that happen? Moving up the value chain, basically.
Yes,
I have a refrigerator with smartness in it, let's say.
Yes, I have the PowerPoint a little bit.
Okay, it's there. PowerPoint, please.
Show. Yeah.
Host. Great, thank you.
Back to the former pages.
Previous,
yes. Previous. Yeah, this one. This one is a model of we call the ISA 95, and like integration in the corporate. But actually, at the top of this pyramid, they mention on the collaboration between companies. So we found that the key dimension enabling the competitiveness of the Thai electrical and electronic sector is come from first the management mindset. If you have the management team agree to implement, it will be easy. It's not. It have to up and down. It's not down and up. And the second one is the cost of investment. Our core team, core is mean the Center of Robotic Excellence. Our team is trained as we call the system analyst. System analyst will help the SME to analyze what the activity they need to be automated or improvement. Maybe it's lean automation or something. And we also concerned about the return of investment. And the third issue is the time to market. If implement of a robotic and automation have to reduce the time to market for the new products. If they just only the same, is no meanings, I think. And some process have to be aligned between the human workforce and the robot, and they have to concern and some security like that. And the most important one is how to select the data for acquisition, because some kind of in the production line they have many kind of data, and some data is not so important, and the sampling rate of the information have to be selected. We found one of the part maker of the automotive. They make some tools for the car manufacturing, but they have to measure every tools in to qualify that the tool length and dimension is comply with the customer. It's really time consuming and labor consuming, and they need to change. Yeah. Okay. This is some my conclusion.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Very technical, but thank you for that view. Dr. Nara, what needs to be done in Thailand to move up this value chain further? Doesn't have to be that technical. Can be, doesn't have to be.
Okay, for my opinion, I think the best technology that the Thai manufacturer should have adopted to move value on creation and competitiveness, that is digital twin technology. That's maybe like a pyramid that Kun Sakda that mentioned before. That's I think this is a digital twin. But I don't worry with the big company, the big manufacturer, because they enforced by the headquarters of the big manufacturer already. They have planned to adopt digital twin in their manufacturing already. But maybe they waiting until the COVID pandemic is enough. Then, but I worry about the SME in Thailand that they, if they want to move, what the policy of the government agency that help them to move up, what is the best policy that should support them. This is the government, Thai government should be thinks it and then adopt it in the fast possible. That I think so. That is my odds.
I see. Also, definitely a big challenge for SMEs, right? As we see in general. However, there must be a proper ecosystem consisting of MNCs and SMC. Only that, if that works, I think whole Thailand can move up that value chain further. Maybe Ms. Varanya, also requesting for a short answer if possible. But what's your opinion about what needs to be done in Thailand to really move up here?
Yeah, I think labor skills and the employee market needs to be changed. Lower skilled employees should be encouraged to have higher skills and educations. We should focus on educating people to learn the high technology skills. So in Thailand, we lack of that. And another key is digital transformation is another key factor to shift Thailand to Industry 4.0. So such as AI, big data, and the IoTs will be a leverage to increase efficiency, innovation, and creativity. And also with Dr. Nara, I agree with you. The government policy and the entrepreneur's mindset have to grow in parallel. Then the Industry 4.0 is not too far to reach.
Thanks. Very interesting assessment. Again, humans are in the center here. And last, definitely not least, Mr. Rajan, maybe your view on this, please.
Yeah, so, Industry 4.0, in my mind, has got two key pillars to it. One is IoT, as Ms. Varanya said. And I think the second one is AI. And within AI, you have big data. Okay, so in order for Industry 4.0 to really take hold, and I feel that it's not a question of, should companies do that? It's more about when they should do that. All companies have to adopt Industry 4.0 methodologies at some point in their life cycle. And I think the two key pillars will be IoT and AI. What this is going to enable is the change in the workforce that Ms. Varanya talked about. You cannot do IoT without reskilling the workforce to do higher value added work. So what is IoT? IoT is all about machine to machine talking to each other. Dr. Nivad showed the sensors, as one of the bases of the pyramids. It's basic sensor technology that needs to be established in any environment so that a machine can talk to a machine and remove the human element from it. And then you take that data and apply AI algorithms to make the analysis that now an engineer can use to better make decisions or to make better decisions. And I think that is the real key for companies to move to Industry 4.0 type technologies and really reinvent themselves. So again, I want to go back and say, it's not a question of whether companies should do it. It's a matter of when they should do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that comment. Really appreciate it. I think was a pleasure. For all of us, I hope. I'm wrapping up now. We are running out of time. As my key takeaway, my very personal key takeaway, when I went into this session, I was thinking, oh, there will be a lot of frustrated comments, and the pandemic is a problem and all that. Maybe I'm a bit too German centric, who always looks at the problems rather at the opportunities. But I see that there's a very positive view into the future, being aware what are the challenges, and that this is definitely not an easy situation, but you see definitely more the way forward rather than shutting down and going back somehow, right? It's really looking into the future, and Industry 4.0 as it is the future of manufacturing is obviously the way to go. A very personal takeaway, I would say. So I leave it there. I will not bore you with another summary or monologue. I thank you very much, distinguished panelists. It was a pleasure for me to moderate this session. I hope it was also a pleasure for you and also interesting for the audience.